Meeting of the Preservation Board is now in order. I'm going to call a roll and establish who's here to begin. I'm present. Commissioner Allen, are you here? Commissioner Hamilton, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Colleen, are you here?
Yes.
Alderman Narayan, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, are you here?
Yeah.
Oh.
Commissioner Allen, are you here?
Here.
Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 present, constituting the quorum. Commissioners. I can see it's
Okay. Oh, there he is.
Commissioners, has anybody read the minutes of April 22nd, 2024? If so, you have a motion.
I move to approve the April 22nd, 2024 Preservation Board minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call a roll for approval of the minutes of April 22nd. Commissioner Allen, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Colleen, yes or no? Alderman Ryan, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, yes or no?
Yes.
Chair also votes yes. That's 8 yeses. These minutes are approved. Commissioners, looking at today's agenda. Is there anybody who needs to recuse themselves from any of these items?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself from agenda item A.
Is that 6-3-17-19, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will so note. Anybody else? In terms of the order, everybody okay with this order? Okay then. Let us begin. Agenda item A, 6-3-17-19, Clayton.
Good afternoon, Preservation Board members. My name is Meg Musto, and I swear to tell the truth. I'd like to enter into the record Ordinance 64689, Preservation Review District Ordinances 64832 and 66609, the agenda, the PowerPoint, my presentation, as well as the agenda and minutes of the Preservation Board meeting of June 27th, 2016, the agendas, materials, and minutes of the Planning Commission meetings of September 7th, 2016 and October 5th, 2016, and the Circuit Court decision in case 1622-CC1458, Division 18, Charlie's Real Estate Investment Properties, LLC, et al., petitioners versus City of St. Louis, et al., respondents. So this is...
Are there any letters or correspondence you need to enter as well?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there are 3 letters that we received over the weekend and today from community member, one from a community member, one from the neighborhood association, and one from the alderman.
Yep.
So this is regarding an appeal of the director's denial to demolish the property at 6317 Clayton, which is right here. And I'll just go through my slides to get y'all oriented. This is in what's known as the Clayton downtown. I'm sorry, the Dogtown downtown. This is a view of the building. It is an addition on the front of what is an older wooden shotgun structure. This gives you the aerial view. You can see where it is in context with other properties. Immediately to the north is an alley that you'll see in some of the later photographs. This is a photo looking east down the 6300 block of Clayton. This is looking west from the end of the block. This is looking down the alley. You can see the side of the building, looking south. And then this is in the rear. You can see that the staircase is in bad condition. This is in the backyard, and I did get permission from the attorney to set foot on the property, looking north and then looking at the back of the building. A little bit more detail there. You can see that there's a lot of debris in the yard. This is the rest of the 6300 block. You can see on the right, building in question. This is looking west again. This is a detail of the western half of the block. And this is directly across the street. And this is in the rest of that block on the opposite side of the street. This is looking west, or sorry, looking east. And this is looking west. So going through the preservation, this is in a preservation review district. And the Cultural Resources and Preservation Board has jurisdiction regarding the demolition because it's in a preservation review district. This is the owner of 631719 Clayton, located in the Clayton-Tam neighborhood, seeks to demolish a commercial building and construct a surface parking lot. The owner, who acquired the property in 2009, has applied for demolition several times. The first such application was in April of 2016, and included the property at 6303 Clayton as well. The Cultural Resources Office denied that application. The owner appealed to the Preservation Board, which upheld the denial at their June 27, 2016 meeting. The owner then sought review of the Preservation Board's decision by the Planning Commission, which considered this matter at its October 5th, 2016 meeting and upheld the Preservation Board denial. The owner then filed an appeal in circuit court. In a ruling dated December 12, 2017, the judge in the case upheld the decision of the Preservation Board as upheld by the Planning Commission. A subsequent demolition application was made in June of 2018, which was also denied by Cultural Resources. Another was filed in June of 2019 and was administratively denied in August of 2019. Further applications for the demolition came in March of 2020 and in January of 2023. In both cases, the applications were denied by Cultural Resources. Another application was made in May of 2023, then withdrawn by the applicant. The most recent application, the denial of which is now before the Preservation Board as an appeal, was made in February of 2024. So I will now review the relevant legislation from Ordinance 64689 and 64832. When we get a demolition application in a preservation review district, we are bound by ordinance to evaluate it according to certain standards established in that ordinance. The first thing we have to look at is there a redevelopment plan that speaks to the nature of the application? And that's not applicable in this case, although there is a redevelopment plan, it does not call for any demolitions. We then look at architectural quality. We have determined that the structure is contributing under the ordinance, and contributing is defined as contributing to a possible historic district and important to the design of a block face and neighborhood. This building contributes to the dense, small scale, built to sidewalk streetscape of this section of Clayton Avenue. We then look at condition. The structure at 631719 Clayton appears to be sound under the definition in Ordinance 64689, which means that visible portions of the exterior walls and roofs appear capable of continuing to support their current loads for 6 months or more. The street fronting part of the building, in addition, has a strong street presence. The section at the rear suffers from deferred maintenance, but appears to be sound. I'd just like to note that in the packet submitted by the appellant, there are 3 letters speaking to the condition of the building. The first 2 are dated 2016 and 2019 from structural engineers, but they do not say that the building is unsound. And there's a 3rd letter from 2023 by a contractor, I believe, who does also not say that the structure is unsound. We then look at structurally attached groups of buildings. That was not applicable. Neighborhood effect and reuse potential. We note that the majority of buildings on the north side of this block are occupied and well maintained. There's a single vacant lot on the entire block, 6305 Clayton, which is also owned by the appellant. The opposite side of the block is dominated by a 5-story H-shaped mixed-use building with retail and lobby space on the 1st floor and apartments above. It was built on then vacant lots and was completed in 2019. The remainder of the block includes 2 historic buildings that abut the sidewalk and a surface parking lot that serves an establishment that fronts on both Clayton Avenue and Victoria Street, which is the parallel street to the north. In terms of reuse potential, the front portion of the building at 6317 Clayton Avenue is suitable for commercial use. The reuse potential of the rear section is more questionable, though it could serve as a support function for the front building. Economic hardship, the applicant has not submitted any information regarding economic hardship. In terms of, yes.
What is a support function?
If it was a coffee house, it could be support needs for a coffee house, whatever.
Are we holding the building up?
No, I do not mean physically supporting. I mean supporting use. Yes. Urban design. We note that the demolition would significantly impact the continuity and rhythm of the structures within the block. Proposed demolition, we again note that the building at 631719 Clayton contributes to the continuity and rhythm of the streetscape, which is composed of 1- and 2-story buildings. There isn't really, the elimination of uses is not applicable. In terms of proposed subsequent construction, the owner definitely has site control. When it comes to the proposed construction equaling or exceeding the contribution of the structure to the integrity of the existing streetscape, we note that there's also a line in here that says parking lots will be given favorable consideration when directly adjoining abutting facilities require off-street parking. And we would note, and I did verify this with the zoning department, the creation of a parking lot here is not in conjunction with another land use application. Therefore, it would not alleviate zoning requirements for adjoining abutting facilities. In terms of architectural compatibility with the existing block face, that's not applicable. A surface parking lot could not be compatible with the existing block face. Whether the property use, the proposed use complies with current zoning requirements. The property is zoned F, neighborhood commercial, which only allows parking lots through a conditional use hearing and issuance of the conditional use permit. The conditional use permit was denied by the Board of Public Service. The applicant appealed to the Board of Adjustment, who overturned the decision, thereby granting a conditional use permit on December 6, 2023. Proposed construction would commence within 12 months. In terms of commonly controlled property, we note that subject parcel is owned by the same entity that owns the vacant lot immediately to the rear at 1129 Graham Street. That's the corner street. And 1719 Clayton is across an alley from a small office building at 6321 Clayton that is also owned by the appellant. And the accessory structures criterion is not applicable. So in terms of preliminary findings and conclusions, we note that 631719 Clayton is a contributing structure in a preservation review district. The building is sound under the definition in Ordinance 64689, which means that visible portions of exterior walls and roofs appear capable of continuing to support their current loads for 6 months or more. The loss of the building would negatively impact the continuity and rhythm of the streetscape. There is significant commercial activity in the Clayton Avenue commercial corridor. The proposed reuse is for a surface parking lot, which would significantly impact the continuity and rhythm of structures within the block and would not be compatible with the existing block face. The owner has approval from the Board of Adjustment to construct a surface parking lot, and the subject parcel is owned by the same entity that owns a vacant lot to the rear at 1129 Graham and a building across the alley at 6321 Clayton. I would just add, as I did in the beginning, that we now have 3 letters of opposition, one from the Clayton Tam Community Association, one from Kami Lewis, who's a citizen, and one from Alderman Brett Narayan. So our recommendation is that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of the demolition application for 631719 Clayton.
Questions from staff?
So you said, or on your report, that redevelopment plans is not applicable, but I think you just testified there is a redevelopment plan, but it doesn't say or doesn't allow for demolition.
Well, that criterion is, if there is a call for the demolition of a specific building in a redevelopment plan, then we have no purview. And this redevelopment plan does not call for any demolition, so it's not applicable in this case.
And with respect to the structural soundness of it, could they offer, are there any engineering studies or anything?
There were 2 letters in the packet that the appellant's lawyer submitted, and I mentioned those, 2 letters from structural engineers, neither of which said that the building was unsound, and then another letter from a contractor, which also did not say the building was unsound, but I believe they may have other information to share with you today.
Thank you.
2016, 2019 for the structural engineers letters, and 2023 for the contractor's letter.
Age well.
So I guess if they had even followed with the definition of sound was back in 2016, the engineer would be wrong since we have a plan for standing.
That sounds logical.
The questions, commissioners? Okay. The appellant present?
Yes.
Oh.
You'll just things or something. You're going to go in and click slide. You'll have to click. So you want to go to the next slide.
We'll click each one.
Yeah, I've just used this.
Just go down.
You just use your finger and
Move it down.
And then- let me get the oh.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon, thank you. Had a little trouble hearing all of Meg's presentation, but pretty much followed the staff report, so I think I was able to follow it. My name is Skip Dufour. I'm an attorney. I represent the applicant, Charlie's Real Estate Investment Properties, and we are on the 631719 Clayton Avenue property.
Is your testimony going to be the truth?
Oh,
That's it. Just say yes.
yes,
Okay,
sorry.
that's good till midnight.
So I do expect, I will call Peter Katsinas, who's the owner of the applicant, Michael Mahaney, who's a professional structural engineer, and Chris Jacobson, who is the vice president and construction manager of Katsinas General Contractors. This appeal involves the 6 basic questions that we always have: the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. And I'm going to digress with a little bit of the background, and I'll move to the who, just to make sure the record's clear. The entity that owns the property is Charlie's Investment Property, a limited liability company owned by Mr. Katsinas. And he purchased the property in the subject property, 17 and 19 Clayton Avenue, in January 2009 at a foreclosure sale. At that time, the building had the brick facade on it, stenciled coffee house, which that building permit for the construction of the facade was in 2007 granted. The business failed. The building fell into disrepair. There were calls of vagrants, illegal drug activity brought to the scene. Mr. Katsinas was motivated to buy this property at foreclosure because of his adjoining property ownership at 63, 21, 23, and 25, which is an office building fully rented without adequate parking. The 6315 address that I have on my slide is incorrect. That's a mistake. I apologize for that. He also owns the 6303 and 05 property on Clayton Avenue, which is a building in a vacant lot. So parking was always tight on this site, but it became in much greater need and demand when the Hibernia apartments were built. That's directly across the street, as Meg indicated. It's a 100-unit complex of 1 and 2 bedroom units. It has 100 parking spaces. It has 15,000 square feet of ground level retail space. There was formerly a grocery store located there, which was not successful, and it is now closed. And there's also a gymnasium, which is still open, facing on the directly across the street from the subject property. So that ground level retail space only has 9 45-degree angles and 3 parallel parking spaces. So other than that, the parking is underground for the residents of the Hibernia apartments. I want to show you some more photographs of the property. Aerial view, exterior view, and interior. I think Meg showed you an adequate aerial view, but the proposed parking lot is shown there. It is across the alley to the east from Mr. Katsinas' property at 6321 through 25 Clayton Avenue. Then immediately to the, so his building is to the west. If I said east, I apologize. There's an alley in between. Then immediately to the east is a 2-story apartment building that's vacant, unoccupied, and has been for some time, some long time. Then immediately to the east of that is the lot that Mr. Katsinas owns at 05, in the building that he owns at 03. And on the corner on that block is the Hogtown Smokehouse, which also has no off-street parking. It does operate. I was there. It seems like it operates mainly on weekends. I don't know for sure but I do know that it wasn't open during the week. But regardless, there's no off-street parking for that restaurant on the east end.
Was it good?
I beg your pardon?
The barbecue good?
I didn't eat it. It was open on Sunday when I was over there. So that's at the corner of Clayton and Grant. So some pictures. With all due respect to Meg's pictures, I think they showed the property at a distance. Quite frankly, doesn't give a real, true and accurate picture of the deterioration that the outside of the building has suffered. So in front of you, you see the improper structure, the door. It's not just the door, it's all the structure around the door. The siding's delaminating. Concrete steps and deck, spalled, cracked, falling apart. The stringer for the porch falling and totally failing. West view, roof deflection. Mr. Mahaney will talk about that in his engineering report, but the roof is always already showing deflection. If you know what you're looking at, it's structurally deficient. The south view, roof failure, that deck is collapsed. The picture that Meg showed you of the same view was after that had been cleaned of the site, but that's what happened when the deck collapsed. The east view, that's the view in between the subject property and the next door property at 63, I guess it's 13 and 15. So you can see that the siding and the sheathing is delaminated all along that eastern view of the property. More exterior views. This was taken from Mr. Katsinas' office across the alley, and it shows roof separation and deflection. The separation, you can see what's alluded to as the commercial building along the front of Clayton Avenue, and to the left as you look at the photograph, that's the building in the rear where you saw the stairs collapsing in the foundation cracking. Little closer view, the next one, the roof separation and buckling. That roof from an exterior point of view is failing and has failed. Foundation delamination, that's also along the east side. If you look at it closely, the foundation is in fact failing in its own. Some more interior views. Now we're looking at the first floor. You've got rotten ceiling joists because of the hole in the roof. Water penetrates. There is no ceiling tile. Mr. Mahaney, who viewed the interior, will explain to you how those floor joists are failing. There's nothing but water there, penetration. Then those two strip bathrooms, even before Mr. Katsinas bought the property, it was already being vandalized. This is in its more current condition today, but everything inside the building, the plumbing, the electrical, have all been stripped and vandalized from the property. Oh, sorry, forgetting how to do this. Okay. I'll bring it down a little bit. Thank you. More interior views. This is looking east to west. That's quote unquote that first floor commercial building, just showing in fact how the condition that it has become and is. Then we go into the basement in the middle picture. The basement ceiling is totally fallen. The walls are delaminating. There's water and mold in the basement. Now, I presume that part of the record, Meg, is the 61 or 66 page submission that I presented to the board separate and apart from this PowerPoint, because there's a letter from a mold restoration person saying there's mold in the basement, and it's in uninhabitable condition. The picture on the right, that's kind of a passageway, I guess, between the building. And again, you can see that the joist structure has fallen and it is failing. And so that is also, you can actually see that picture from the exterior, but that is technically an interior view. So before I get in, I want to mention a couple of things, I guess, about the staff report. You know, originally, when CRO office denied the petition on April the 8th, it was denied because the building was considered a merit structure in sound condition per ordinance. Building has potential for reuse. Proposed reuse is vacant lot, which would negatively impact integrity, rhythm, balance, and density on the site, block, intersection, or district. Critical thing there is the building was considered on the denial letter a merit building. We get to the staff report today, and it's not a merit building. It's not a qualifying building. It's what is called a contributing building. And if we look at the definition for contributing building under the ordinance, I can put my hands on it and I may have to come back to it, but I'm going to submit to you, it's not a merit building. It's not a qualifying building, as Mr. Krasnoff had found it to be when the petition was denied back in 2019. That's also in your packet. So it's now considered a contributory building, which is defined under the ordinance as contributing to a possible historic district, which we do not have, and important to the design of block face in neighborhood. Contributing to possible historic district and, not or, important to design of block face in neighborhood. So I would submit to you that the building is not even a contributing building under the ordinance if you read the definition and apply it to this circumstance. A little more on that later. So it is true that Mr. Katsinas has been trying to get approval for this parking lot since 2016. And he was actually in that application was denied, as Meg indicated, and quite frankly, it was denied because of insufficient evidence presented to the board by the applicant. And when the appeal was to the Planning Commission, by their rules, you couldn't submit any additional evidence other than what was submitted at the preservation hearing. The attorney for Mr. Katsinas at the time tried to introduce some evidence at the Planning Commission, but rightfully under their rules, they said, no, we can't consider it because it wasn't presented to the board. That was appealed to the courts, as Meg indicated. Quite frankly, it was the same decision. Not enough insufficient evidence or virtually no evidence presented to the board, so the court had to defer to the decision of the board with the denial. So that was a misfire regardless, but he has been trying to get approval since 16. I got involved later on. I worked with Mr. Krasnoff. We got delayed by COVID. Even after we had obtained a conditional use permit from the Board of Adjustment in 2019. By the time I tried to reinstate the process for that, I was advised by the CRO office that the conditional use permit had expired because no construction had started within a year, and that the board would not be able to consider any possible development of the site if there was not approved use for the site. So that application was withdrawn. We went back to the drawing board. We went back to Planning Commission. Even though there was a positive staff report granting the CUP for the parking lot at this location, it was denied by Planning Commission. And that's the letter that Alderman Narayan, as well as the Neighborhood Association, wrote in opposition to the consideration by the Planning Commission and also the consideration by the Board of Adjustment. But the Board of Adjustment granted again for a second time the request for a conditional use permit, and that is in hand. And we have a permitted use vis-a-vis that. Our construction plans have been approved for the site as they were back in 2019 when I was dealing with Mr. Krasno. So we're here, of course, obviously before you, because you can't build a parking lot if you can't demolish the building. So we're here with you. But in 2019, actually, Mr. Katsinas attempted to construct a parking lot. So when we hear the criticism that he has no intention of building a parking lot there, that defies logic and all the efforts that he's made in order to attempt to get this accomplished for the reasons I'll later talk about. So it's not as if this is something that if he gets permission, he doesn't intend to do. He needs to do it to preserve the viability of his own adjoining property. So as indicated, it was previously a qualifying structure under Mr. Krasnoff, became a merit, and now before you today, it's considered contributing. And I would mention that the ordinance talks about a classification of the building as high merit, merit, qualifying, and non-qualifying. Contributing is a definition under the ordinance, but it doesn't fit in the categories that there's supposed to be a determination for this building. Covered that one. I think I will stop here. That's what my PowerPoint says I should do, to take testimony. And I would like to first call Mr. Michael Mahaney to be sworn and to offer his testimony upon questioning from me and response by him, if that's a permissible form.
What is it ready to
Our
say?
attorney or this
No,
one?
it's-
No, that's what I sorry.
Did I misspeak?
It's up to you.
Oh, wait.
Do you have a question? I'm sorry.
We're gonna have been instructed, we'll wait for the end question.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Just you want to ask Mike if he wants to tell the truth?
Where is?
Right there, sorry. Oh, you want him up here? Oh, so he can hear it. Got you, okay. Well, we'll stand side by side, so you can hear my questions.
Michael, who are you?
Michael Mahaney,
And is your testimony going to be the truth?
whole truth and nothing but the truth.
That's even more than I asked for. Thank you.
Please state your name.
Michael T. Mahaney,
What is your profession?
I'm a structural engineer.
And how long have you been a structural engineer?
Well, I've been a licensed structural engineer for 51 years, since 1973.
Mike, would you tell the board to give them a brief resume of your work experience and your professional career?
Okay, graduated from St. Louis University back in 1968. Got my master's degree from the University of Missouri at Rolla. Worked my first 30 years as a bridge engineer in St. Louis County. We dealt with the inspection, design, and construction of buildings and bridges throughout the county. I have a lot of experience with these kind of structures, and believe me, there's a lot of old buildings out there that could be saved. Unfortunately, this is not one of them. You have to be careful with the requirement that the building has to be standing after 6 months. That 6-month period, that just because a building is standing doesn't mean that it's stable. It's not necessarily structurally sound and safe for use. It may be standing, but it may, at the same time, it may not be safe for use by the public.
So Mike, did you have an opportunity to inspect this building, interior and exterior?
I did. May 15th, I looked at inside and outside the building, and I had just briefly looked at the building about 2 months prior to that. Just happened to be in the neighborhood, and we took a look at it. What's a little deceiving the first time I looked at the building, what's deceiving is that from all intents and purposes, it appears to be a masonry structural wall on the front of the building. But it's not that at all. Once you get into it, we show them it's actually a brick veneer. It's not full brick, and it cannot take any compression loads from snow or wind.
Is this an example of it, sir?
It is. This is was taken off of that exact building, and this is a piece of concrete. And from the outside, it looks very much like stacked up brick. But if you look real close, there are holes in these pieces, and these pieces of concrete are actually bolted to a 2x4 or 2x6 wall, a wood wall. And these walls that are inside the building have become super saturated with water that has caused them to swell and soften, and eventually these blocks will fall off the face of the building. They are not structural. They have to be supported by the structure itself.
So,
You got a question?
Oh, you give it to us.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
You're probably not gonna get that back.
That's all right. We got plenty of it.
so, Mike, I want you to talk a little more about this definition of sound. Did I explain to you that the definition of sound means that the visible portions of exterior walls and roof appear capable of continuing to support their current loads for 6 months or more? Did I explain that definition?
You did.
And did you carefully look at the exterior of the building and the roof?
I did.
The pictures that I showed to the board, were there ones that you've seen and reviewed?
Very accurate, yes.
And so, do you believe that the building is sound? Can you say, in your professional opinion, that it will hold the current loads for 6 months or more?
I can't say that because right now it won't hold the loads that would be imposed on it by city, by building code or what have you.
Do you believe that the building that the load that the building presently have is being supported by the exterior walls and the roof in their current condition?
It's may be able to handle the dead load as you see it on the street. But once you get a heavy wind or a heavy snow load in there, there's no way you could say that it would withstand that the forces of nature, if you will.
Mike, are you aware of the fact that the building was declared condemned by the city of St. Louis in April 2003?
2023
2023
is the one I saw. Yes,
yeah,
I'm aware.
Okay, maybe then too.
Yeah.
And did I show you the violations that were cited by the city in that notice of condemnation, which after I fumble around, I'll see if I can find?
Yes. I have a copy of that.
For the record, these are pages, I guess, 31 through 34 in the submittal packet. But Mike, what I want to direct your attention to is to the violations as cited by the city in the April 23 notice of condemnation, which quite frankly are the same ones that were in the January 20 notice of condemnation. But directing your attention to these, you see where it says walls cracked, major violation.
Yes,
Did you observe that?
I did.
Were those the exterior walls?
They were.
Roof deflection, major violation. Roof is defective. Did you observe that?
I did.
That's exterior.
Correct.
Interior structural deteriorated. Interior major violation. Interior structure members are rotten. Did you observe that?
That's correct.
Tell the board what you observed about the interior structural members.
The problem with a wood frame is once it becomes super saturated like that, it will undergo some real changes. And there are portions of the first floor that have actually failed. Your floor joists in every house that people own, you've got floor joists sitting on top of a wall or a beam. Those floor joists have actually dropped several inches because they failed in shear. They are not capable of withstanding just the dead load of themselves.
Stringer, major violation.
Same thing.
Risers, major violation.
That's the stairs are, you'd have to start from scratch on the stairs, and frankly, every part of the building would have to be demolished in order to make it even.
So, but the risers, that's an exterior.
That's an exterior stair riser, yeah.
Treads, is that also
Same
exterior?
thing.
Major violation.
Same thing.
Improper securing of the door, missing porch, major violation. Is
Yes.
that exterior?
Correct.
And siding, minor violation, is that the siding on the east wall and around the building?
Correct.
Facial's good. Concrete deck, minor violation, is that the porch deck?
I believe that is yes, the concrete porch deck.
Where it says spalled and cracked?
Correct. Correct.
Concrete steps, those had fallen?
Yes.
Exterior?
They can't be repaired. They're in such bad shape that you would have to demolish them and start from scratch.
And the failing of the stairs, the steps and the deck, is that because the foundation is failing? The support system for that?
Correct. Correct.
Crack shift, it says repair cracked shift foundation wall, the last one on there, major violation. Did you notice that?
Yes. Yes, that was in one of the photographs you showed.
And is that part and parcel of your decision why the building is not holding its even current loads because all of this deflection, shifting and cracking?
Because of all the failures that currently exist in the building.
In your opinion, do you believe that building can be made reasonably safe by repair?
The problem with that is, in order to repair something, you've got to have something to support your repair. If you go up to the roof and you've got sheathing that needs to be replaced, you don't have any roof rafters or trusses, wood trusses to hold that. When you go to repair the truss, the walls won't take the repair of the truss. So you can't really use the word repair in this situation because all the way down to the foundation, everything is broken. And again, the building might be standing, but it certainly isn't usable and it certainly isn't safe for inhabitants.
When you did your interior inspection, what about the building systems or components, the electrical, mechanical, plumbing? What did you observe there?
All the utilities seem to be non-existent. Either the vandals have pulled the copper wiring or any wiring out of it, and there's just nothing that you could reuse in that building in the way of utilities.
And from the interior, could you determine that the roof had failed because of water penetration?
Yes, you could see the sky through the roof from the inside.
Mr. Mahaney, you've indicated Well, have you indicated that you don't believe the building can be repaired?
Correct. I don't believe that you can use the word repair on a structure like this.
And to attempt to repair it, do you believe that would create an economic hardship of even attempting to do something futile?
It would cost more you'd have to replace the entire building.
And what about reasonable beneficial use, Mr. Mahaney? Without demolition, can this structure be put to any reasonable beneficial use going forward?
No.
That's all I have.
That's fine. I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Okay, I just dealt with a situation like this, where the building will sound, and then the engineers come in, and it's not, but I have two questions. If someone were to sell this property to you for a third of its value, of its future value, and you know you cannot demolish the building, would you purchase it? Knowing all the information you know regarding the structure and what you.
No.
Okay. If someone were to try to go in and fix it, a foundation company, I know you're not a foundation, you're an engineer, but that's probably even more important than a foundation company when it comes to these decisions. If you were to go in and try to fix it, would you believe, and I know you're not a foundation company, would you believe this would, they would be able to warranty their work when making the quote unquote repair, or would it be more of a Band-Aid?
Yes, it would be a Band-Aid. You can't really, as a structural engineer, I couldn't come up with a repair plan to the concrete foundation. It's a combination of stone, concrete, and block. And I could not come up with a repair that I could stand behind, that I could put my seat.
And last question, do you feel confident, because I know you've been doing this since '73 and
Long time.
So do you feel confident other colleagues in this field would come to the same conclusion that you have come to?
Absolutely. Without doubt.
One more question.
Sorry.
More questions?
More question, because I just went through this in fact.
Good.
One question. Is it your testimony that although this looks like a solid, firm, standing, safe building that you could go in and start a business with, that it is very deceiving to the eyes and only a skilled professional engineer or skilled foundation company could come to this conclusion?
Correct. You would have to go inside the building. Like I say, it's deceiving from the sidewalk because it appears to be a masonry structure, but it is not. It is a wood frame. If you look right behind the wall, you've got a wood frame. And my biggest concern is that the sidewalk and the streets the sidewalk is adjacent to the building wall. And what happens is once you lose that horizontal diaphragm, we got a horizontal diaphragm here in the ceiling, we got one in the floor. They pretty well take the loads from earthquakes and high winds, okay? And if you don't have that in place, I'm really concerned that you're causing some severe safety issues with the people that are using that sidewalk. Because eventually that sidewalk will subside and the interior foundation will break through or at least deflect enough to cause the sidewalk to settle.
Okay.
Any other questions about this?
Two questions.
Sure.
Bill two?
Actually,
It
two.
depends on where it goes.
So by Tiffany's standards, I have half of it. No, Mr. Mahaney, I just have two simple questions. One, when did you first become involved in this specific project? And the second question is, approximately how many historic buildings have you inspected in this manner before in your long career?
I've only, my awareness of this building's only been for about 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. And, I used to work, when I was leaving the highway department, I worked for the parks department for, about 4 or 5 years. And we were able to save some buildings, but I was involved with a lot of historic buildings because there's 62 parks in the St. Louis County system, and I was in every one of them. So I'd say, you know, at least 100 such buildings.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions, commissioners, before we get this?
Yeah, you testified to Commissioner Hamilton here that you had to go, or it's like when you went inside the building, that's when it became, you could tell that it was unsafe or unsound, with, I guess, from the street.
Correct. Very deceiving from the sidewalk, very deceiving.
Okay, so if I'm just walking on the street, if I can do the exterior inspection of the property, it could appear sound, but I have to go inside and do an interior inspection.
Just the masonry, the masonry veneer side of the building. If you walk around the back side, you saw the photos. I don't think you make that assumption there
Okay, so you're definitely in the exterior portion of the masonry. You know, if you did an exterior inspection of the masonry, it would appear sound, you'd have to get inside, but the frame part, in your opinion,
is not safe, right?
Okay.
And be aware of something. We've all got cracks in our basement, usually at a window in the basement. The concrete's going to crack every 8 or 10 feet, like it or not. It's just the nature of the beast. So you've got cracks about 8 or 10 feet in your basement. If you look real close, if you don't have them, I'll be surprised. But 8 to 10 feet concrete shrinks up after it cures, and it leaves cracks. Now, this building has cracks longitudinal with the wall. If you look at some of those photographs at the window wells, we actually got a crack or a delamination where the concrete is actually wanting to peel away from the original structure. It's hard to tell, but it may have been an added feature to the stone that was there originally.
And you also touched on reuse potential and maybe economic hardship with it. And I think you answered this in part for Commissioner Allen here. Have you done any historic rehabs?
Historic rehabs?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Have you used historic tax credits and incentives, tax abatement to redevelop any buildings?
That was handled by other people in the Parks Department, but I was the guy that had to determine what we were going to do with it, or if we could do anything to save it.
So I think you haven't done a tax credit finance deal.
Not personally, no, sir.
So with respect to if this was eligible for historic tax credits, you don't have any opinion on the viability of it if there were tax credits?
No.
And then we also heard some testimony about Barrett contributing. Do you have any, are you versed in architectural history or historic preservation in terms of Barrett buildings and contributing buildings? Any testimony there?
No, I'm not an architect. I'm a structural engineer.
Okay, thank you. Oh, wait, you also, one more. And then with respect to youth and safety issues, you're concerned about the facade maybe falling into the street or the sidewalk. Do you have any idea how much money Mr. Katsinas has put into this building since he's?
I do not.
2009?
I do not.
0?
I have no idea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one more question.
Sure.
To make it clear, this, you can say yes or no to my question. To make it, I'm making it. Okay, to make it clear, this building is not structurally sound, and that if someone gave this building to you and you were responsible for the sales tax or the yearly tax, and you knew you were not allowed to demolish this building, would you take it for free?
No.
The answer, did you say no?
No.
Okay. One other question, if, yeah, well,
Okay.
okay, I'm done.
No.
No, that's all right.
Ask your question, but go.
No, it's just, I already asked it.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question of the owner.
He's,
The owner,
he's a testified.
he will be testifying.
Okay, well, these questions, all right, I can wait till.
Mike, I've got one question to ask you. So regardless of whether this building qualified for tax credits or not, would that change your opinion about its lack of structural integrity and lack of having any reasonable beneficial use for being reconstructed or rehab?
No.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
Mr. DeFord, could you bring all the witnesses up so I can swear them all in?
These two gentlemen here.
Okay, bring them up, introduce them, I'll ask them to swear. Hey, tell us who you are.
Peter Katsinas,
Is your testimony gonna be the truth?
and it is
Okay, gentlemen? Your name?
My name is Christopher Jacobson.
Is your testimony gonna be the truth?
Believe true.
Commissioner?
I'll wait till after.
I've got them sworn in now.
I can with this. They're attorney about this.
If you have questions, get up them now or later, your choice.
Is that true? Will you be asking your client questions or?
Yes, sir.
I'll wait till after you.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record, sir.
My name is Christopher A. Jacobson.
By whom are you employed?
I'm employed by Katsinas Construction Company, doing business as Katsinas General Contractors.
And how long have you been employed by them?
Since the early nineties, I believe 1991.
And Chris, what's your job title, your description, your duties for Katsinas Construction?
Small company, I wear a lot of hats, but it's construction manager, vice president, charge of bidding, acquiring bids, writing contracts to subcontractors and managing projects to see that they're completed and collecting money.
So, sir, you were employed by Katsinas Construction at the time the property was purchased by Peter Katsinas' company?
That's correct.
Okay. And did you, at that time in 2009 at foreclosure, thereabouts, did you have any opportunity to view the condition of the property then?
Just from the exterior at that point in time.
Was the building vacant at that time?
When he purchased the property, yes, it was. It had been, I think, for a couple of years.
And do you know whether or not the building had been vandalized prior to the time of purchase?
It has been vandalized on a continuous basis. We have spent a lot of time and money boarding it back up, and they tear it off and they keep breaking it.
And prior to your testimony today, did you recently view the property again, Chris?
I did reacquaint myself with the property to address the violation list that we have now, mainly on the outside, and then stepping into the interior to view the interior again, just to refresh myself.
And when you say the violations, are you referring to the April 2023 violations from the Department of Public Service Safety, notifying that the property has been condemned?
Yes, I am.
And were those the same ones that you heard Mr. Mahaney testifying to?
Yes.
His
Yeah.
testimony? And Chris, did you confirm that the items cited as violations in the notice of condemnation were in fact present on the property?
I did.
So for Katsinas, have you had opportunities to be it reconstruction work or rehab work or addition work to real estate?
I have both commercial, residentially. For a number of years, we did a lot of historic rehab projects for the city of St. Louis, facade grant money. So we worked in quite a few older buildings, mainly the facades on them. And then for some of our clients, they own buildings in the city. A lot of them, again, are old residential and commercial buildings. So we do have experience in this.
Chris, do you believe that any portion of the building is salvageable, capable of being repaired or reconstruction, put to viable economic use or reasonable beneficial use? Any portion of the building?
Not of this building, this structure, no.
And why do you say that?
Because in addressing the various violations, putting a dollar amount just to repair, replace that violation, even though the sum of all those repairs would not equal what it would cost to rebuild that building. If you took the roof, for example, the roof's defective. I can't repair that roof. I can remove the roof completely, rebuild the roof, but I'm setting it on walls that are failing. The walls are setting on a subfloor and foundation are failing. Really needs to come down all the way to the ground. I can't salvage any of it. I'll get to the board, yeah.
It's not a touch screen.
Just the last very end.
Say, Chris, we'll put up on the screen what I've called the Christopher Jacobson exhibit. Is that a document that you prepared, sir?
Yes, this is a consolidation of costs to make the various repairs or replacement per the violation list. And because there are no working plans, I use two estimating programs that we use. One is RS means square foot estimate for the commercial side, and then there's a home tech remodeling and renovation cost that's more geared to residential because this building is kind of a mix, mainly a residential structure.
So let's make sure that the board understands this exhibit, Chris. Did you attempt to cost out the potential repair of these items cited by the Department of Public Safety in its notice of condemnation?
I have.
Okay.
Total here.
And I see that, for instance, items 2 and 3, where it says roof defect, interior structural deterioration, you put some notes there. Would you explain to the preservation board the meaning of those notes and why you put those in there?
They're like roof defect, $118,633. It sounds like a lot, but you've got the gable roof in the back that's failing. You've got flat roof up front that's failing. We'd have to tear all those off, but to tear those off, I need to shore that existing building walls. And then there are some interior structures that some bearing walls and such that I don't have included in this cost because apparently violations are only looking at the exterior of the building.
So all of those cited violations are only exterior ones with the exception of the one that talks about interior structural deterioration, correct?
Right, and I've not included anything there.
Okay.
The whole interior is
But going back to your roof defect number of 118,633, you have a note that it does not include rebuilding exterior walls. Is that correct?
That's correct. The walls are failing. I can't sit on them. But the violations don't see that. They just see the siding.
And 7, where it says improper secure, which is the designation on the notice of condemnation, does not include surrounding structural walls. What does that mean?
That means if there's a missing door, broken window, it needs to be secured. Well, they're so badly broken, parts missing, I need to replace them. But once you replace them, the framing members, the headers and such around them are also deteriorated, falling apart. And I don't really have anything to attach to.
And also number 8, citing. Remember, you've got $34,285. You've got a note, does not include wall sheathing and wall studs. Need to be replaced as they are rotten. So that number does not include that.
That's correct, because once you remove all that, then you're going to see underneath what the sheathing and such looks like, so that would be an additional cost.
Would that be consistent with the testimony of Mr. Mahaney about what's behind the walls?
It would, yes.
So I noticed there's a big number called parking and driveway of $140,000. And explain to the board what that number is.
There was an original count that required the parking and driveway to be maintained or replaced. That's behind the building. There is nothing there. So I estimated the cost for a smaller parking lot based on the cost of the large parking lot that would have gone in place of the building.
So Chris, even eliminating that estimated $140,496 for the parking and driveway, you're still left with over $300,000 for potential repairs, correct?
That's correct. And again, that's only a shell, the outside of the building. That's not interior walls, drywall, electric, painting, plumbing, floors. That's just to build a shell back.
So Chris, even if you had $300,000 in hand to attempt repair of these violations, because of your noted exceptions and reservations, do you believe you could return the structure to a viable, safe condition with that $300,000?
I cannot, and I really wouldn't ask our people or subs to work on that building.
Sir, do you believe that the building can be returned to a reasonable beneficial use, the safe building, or does it need to be demolished?
It's my opinion of experience, the building would need to be demolished.
Any more questions?
You have one more witness?
I beg your pardon?
You have one more witness?
I do. Anyone has questions of Mr. Jacobson?
Okay, so you put a dollar amount on repairing this building, but is it your testimony that even though you put a dollar amount, this is not the accurate dollar amount to make this a safe, viable building?
No, I was asked to put a dollar amount to address the violations, not to rebuild a building.
So, addressing the violations stated by the city, in your opinion, does not resolve the safety issues for this property?
It does not, no. It's just, this is what the cost is to do that, but I'm saying you can't do it. The building as a whole.
Would it be a waste of money to try to spend $300,000 to do that?
Right, because in the end, you haven't fixed it.
Would you take on this project if someone were to hire you to make these repairs, knowing that safety would be concerned?
No.
Mr. Jacobson, have you ever, in any of the years of this building being kind of in the orbit of this company, prepared an estimate for full and total renovation of this building? I'm asking you for 2023, but just as a matter of fact, have you ever looked at that?
No, in 2019, we looked at, again, trying to make some repairs, and had by that time determined you can't repair the building. It's our opinion, you can't repair it.
But not before 2019 then?
I couldn't recall that. Yeah.
You reviewed this building in 2009, did you say?
19.
Oh, okay, I thought you said you did in 2009 when it produced it.
When we're trying to go through this whole permit process
Okay,
through the years.
Okay, but you didn't inspect it in 2009.
In 9?
Prior, did you inspect the property? I thought you said in 2009 you did a exterior.
2019.
Okay.
I'm
So
sorry.
you weren't involved with the purchase. Okay.
Where the owner has put any, other than boarding up the building, has the owner tried to spend any money on repairing the roof, tucking the walls, fixing utilities, anything like that?
There's been money spent over the years for trying to do certain things to keep it from falling in further disrepair, but there's also been money spent on the parking lot that a lot of people don't think is gonna happen for civil engineering fees and design and all that and running it through the permit process. So, yes.
What expenses, what money was spent on trying to keep the building?
Well, you try to patch a roof here, you gotta send carpenter, they're $75 an hour, you gotta send them out and keep reboarding the place up.
Get the reboarding done on the roof, so when's the last time someone's patched the roof?
I don't want to keep track of that, but I know partners have gone out there. At some point, you gotta stop. There's nothing for them to stand on, there's nothing to support them up there working.
So when you just, yes, when did you stop taking repairs to it?
I told you I don't know that. I don't keep track of that. Sorry.
May Mr. Katsinas testify from a seated position?
If you want a record, yes, I don't know.
Let's. Okay, can you work this here, Pete?
Right.
Okay.
Staff has sworn that this technology can do it, but we've never seen it before.
Okay. Pete, please state your name for the record.
Peter Katsinas.
Are you the owner of Charlie's Real Estate Investment Properties?
Correct.
Sole owner, sole manager?
Yes,
And that entity owns the property at 631719 Clayton Avenue, correct?
correct.
What is the approximate size of that lot?
Could be 50 by 160.
50 is the frontage along Clayton Avenue?
Correct.
And you also own other property in the area, sir?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
Own 6321 to 25. I own 6303, 6305.
Are any of these properties occupied?
6321 to 25 is occupied with 3 tenants. And 6303 is an empty lot. I mean, 6305 empty lot and 6303 is an empty building.
So the tenants that are occupied in the office building, it's your contracting company?
Yes. And United Cerebral Palsy's on the first floor. And the basement is Midwest Ballet.
Okay. And down at the east end of the street, there's a smokehouse restaurant, correct?
Correct.
Does it have any off-street parking?
No, it does not.
So your office building, 6321 to 25,
Yes.
is there a shortage of parking available for your building there?
Well, yes. My first floor tenant has got 7 to 8 employees and parking has come up. Residents have called and complained about it. And then the Midwest Valet is parking behind the coffee house right now. And I am parking on the streets.
So about how many employees does the valet have?
Valet's got about 5 to 7 employees.
And what about your construction company? How many full-time employees do you have?
3.
And do you occasionally have people coming in to take bids on
Correct.
plans, et cetera?
Correct.
And how many more spaces would you feel you'd need for that?
3 to 4.
So you're proposing so all of these tenants need off-street parking, correct?
Correct.
And they don't have any.
No, they do not.
I mean, whatever parking's available on the street is what they have to try to get, right?
Right. And some people have left and called and said, let me know when parking's available.
And the autism center, are those children dropped off daily in the morning?
Yes, they are.
And
That is a shame looking at them. And they have to go out and get them. And they have to go out, they double park in the street. Not a safe condition. So just cringe thinking somebody's gonna hit them one day.
So if this proposed 23 space parking lot, autism needs
7, let's say, correct?
Yes, minimum,
Valet needs 5,
yes,
minimum.
yes,
You need 5, minimum.
yes,
So that's 17, correct? Minimum.
correct.
Now,
And that's loads that we'd be taking off the street. Because right now they're having to park on the street.
Pete, has parking become more difficult on-street parking since the construction of the Hibernia Apartments?
Yes, it has been, because they were only allowed one parking space when they built that. And,
You mean 1 per unit?
one per unit, and there's 2 people living in a unit together, husband and wife, or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and they got extra cars, and they need a place to park,
Do you know how many units are in that Hibernia Apartments?
100.
And their parking is underground, correct?
100 units, there's 100 parking spots underground, and there's 9 2-bedrooms, in there.
So have you seen an increased demand for on-street parking since the Hibernia Apartments have been built and developed?
No question about it. And the grocery store lost business because people couldn't find a place to park.
Pete, how long have you owned property in the Flavortown neighborhood?
50 years,
So your company's construction offices have been there about that same time, roughly
Correct.
45, 50 years or whatever?
correct.
Have you owned any other businesses in
O'Neill
that area over the years?
Lumber across the street. It was Forest Park Lumber then.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I know there's been some letters of criticism about your stewardship of that property. It was originally Forest Park Lumber, is that right?
Correct,
And at some point in time, did it become O'Neill Lumber?
correct.
And why was that?
Well, I bought O'Neill Lumber and I merged them together. And, for, cost, because it was getting more competitive, trying to stay alive.
And that O'Neill Lumber location, is that the location where the Hibernia Apartments now exist?
Yes, it is.
And you said you were trying to stay competitive and stay in business. At some point in time, did O'Neill Lumber go out of business?
Yes, it did.
When was that?
Probably 07.
And how severe was the financial impact on you at that
Well,
time?
there was millions of dollars that were lost. And, we totally took care of the property. We improved it constantly. I put the metal building up there. I asphalted it so they didn't have dust in there. Did nothing but spend money after money after money improving that area.
Did you ultimately have to take in a partner on that building? in
Yeah, I
order to
did at
keep
the
mortgage
end.
Payments up and not
Yes.
avoid foreclosure yourself?
Yes, correct.
So once the lumber company failed, I mean, what was your plan for that property?
Mr. DeBoer? Can we focus more on the building in question? We've gotten some latitude on parking, but
Okay.
I don't need a history of the block.
Okay, let's talk about the subject property. When you acquired it in 2009 by foreclosure, what condition was it in?
It was a terrible, well, it was foreclosed on. And I was the only one at the courthouse steps to bid on it. The bank foreclosed on it and I bid it in. At, what they owed the bank.
And when you bought that property at foreclosure, the business had failed, correct?
Correct.
It was some kind of a coffee business, was it?
Well, it was a drug rehab. So by drug heads, supposedly drinking coffee, but they were smoking weed and doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
So it was never like a Starbucks or a Coffee's?
No.
And when it was operated, did it create problems in the neighborhood?
Yes, it did.
So when you bought the building in 2009, was it your purpose to build, your attempt to put a parking lot on it even then?
Back then, I thought I would use it as a parking was a play opportunity to get parking close by.
And even back then, you were looking for off-street parking?
Yes,
Now we've got some letters of opposition or protest here. One by Alderman Ryan and by the Community Association. They've written letters in protest. You're aware of that, sir?
I am. My question to them
Let me
is,
ask you this, before you go on. Did you ever intentionally neglect that property?
no. Quite the opposite.
Has either the alderman or anyone from the neighborhood association ever come to you and said, let's talk about the building, can we see the inside of the building, what are the
Never.
plans for the building?
Never, never. And I reached out to them and I never got a response.
So other than the letters, you've been accused of purposely not taking care of the property. No one's ever approached you or asked you about it, correct?
I never met this man till now.
No one's ever asked you if they could
No.
go to the interior of the building and
No.
see what was going on,
No.
correct? I want to ask you what you know about plastic soil in the neighborhood, Pete. as a
Well,
contractor.
I'm totally familiar with plastic soil. I built Lehman Place. And plastic soil is very movable. It's not stable. And what we did with Lehman Place, we put 29 piers in, and then we put a grade beam on top to carry that building. And that was in '07. It's never moved.
So when you said we built it, what was your role in that?
General contractor.
What about the Hibernia apartments? Are you aware whether they ran into plastic soil?
Yes, they did. Yes, they
And
did.
what are you aware of there?
They had to do the same. They had to beef up the foundation.
Well, that's the point of the microphone. Okay? Do you believe that plastic soil condition also exists on 63-17-19?
No question about it. I know that for a fact.
Now, if a parking lot is built on that, does that have the same problems as opposed to putting a building on it, sir?
No, it does not.
Now, have your plans to build the parking lot been approved?
Correct.
City of St. Louis approved it? MSD approved it?
Correct.
There's also been allegations in the correspondence that if you're granted the demolition permit, you're never gonna build the parking lot. Is that true, sir?
No, sir.
Has anyone ever asked you about that?
No.
That's just something someone's made up?
Most of it's made up right now.
And you've been trying since at least, what, 2016 to get this parking lot approved?
Correct.
Paying money for plans and engineers and lawyers, correct?
Yes.
Now, you've been asked the question's been asked about whether or not you spend any money to try to improve the property since you bought it in 2009. With your intended purpose of creating a parking lot, did you spend money on the building to improve it in any way?
Try to maintain it, so I was spending money to maintain it because so it didn't fall in total disarray. And even at that, it was broken into. The fire department came by and he said to me, the captain there, if this building catches fire, I've ordered my men not to go in. It is absolutely hazardous and there will be a bad outcome. So at that point, and even they said this building needs to come down. That was a 22s.
Pete, you've heard the testimony of Mike Mahaney, the engineer, and Chris Jacobson, your longtime employee, saying that the building can't be restored or rehabbed and put to economic use. Do you concur with that?
Correct. If it was, we'd have done it. I mean, I rehabbed the building I'm in, 63.125. From the basement up, I redid everything. Everything's new, plumbing, electric, walls, everything.
Is it fair to say that that building didn't have the problems of 63, 17, 19?
Correct. I wouldn't have done it if it had.
Now, in the packet of materials that I submitted includes a declaration of restrictive covenants. Do you remember that, Pete? That you're agreeing, if the demolition permit is granted, you're agreeing on your own volition, your own free will, to keep that property subject to any review for future development.
If they got a block deal, I'm definitely open to go ahead and take that and the other properties and develop it. It does nothing but enhance the neighborhood and the use, and it enhances my building, 632125. I'd be all in favor of that.
So you're not trying to avoid future review by the Cultural
no.
Resources Office.
No, I welcome.
I don't have any further questions.
When did you purchase, what month did you purchase this in 2009? Do you remember?
I bought it in foreclosure in January, probably.
Of 29, okay.
2009.
And I see, and I'm asking this for a reason. I see that you, on the MLS, tried to rent it out in October for $28.50 a month, and it said the tenant finishes the building as they wish. So did you initially try to rent this out and it didn't work? It said it was on the market for 183 days from someone from Remax.
No, I did not. Not true.
That's not true?
No, I didn't give it to them unless somebody else did.
Okay.
I never signed it. If I did sign with anybody, it would have been Realty Exchange.
Oh, I mean, I don't care who you signed with.
Right, I
On the
didn't
MLS,
sign
it
with
says
anybody.
October 30th, 2009.
No,
It's on
I
the market
did not.
for 183 days.
And what did it say? Tenant to finish?
Huh?
Tenant to finish?
It says tenant finish extras as wishes. And they said that the tenant finishes the building at their expense, and they were renting it out $28.50 a month. It was on the market for 183 days. It was listed on October 30th, 2009. So I was wondering about that.
Pete, ever since your ownership of the building on foreclosure, has anyone come to you seeking to rent that building?
Yes, they did.
Who was that?
Pepe did. And he had a restaurant. He wanted to go in there. And they didn't want to rent it, they wanted to buy it.
Did they make you an offer?
No, I told them it wasn't for sale.
Did you want to, had you decided to use it as a parking lot?
Yes, and that was the reason I said I bought it.
Yes, is the city requiring you to provide parking off street?
They have not so far required it.
This is more, you just like to provide this parking for your tenant.
Well, the problem is as I testified earlier, people have left and called and said, I can't find a parking spot. That's not good for business. And now it's cerebral palsy, when you see those kids having to get out of cars in the middle of the street, they're handicapped, that's not a positive.
How many square feet of real estate are of this parking lot support?
23 spots where the blueprints.
So how many square feet, I'm curious? It's all office space that this parking lot will be supporting. So in your building.
Oh, well, I said that we'll probably use half of them for that building, but probably could use a lot of them. And I've got people that across the street would love all street parking that live in Hibernian.
So you're unable to tell me the square footage that parking lot is supporting. I'm wondering how many square feet are you renting that parking lot needs to take care of?
I think he's asking, in your 6321 25 building, you got the 320 tenants.
Right.
I think you're asking for the square footage of that building, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Where you got 64 and 16. You got about 8,000 feet.
And then, finally, have you considered, maybe a compromise for the front of the building that has that false brick on it is safe and you've got a parking lot is built behind it? That would be one more space for you to have. I look at this and I think I could save 15 spaces from your parking lot.
Well, you know, as Mr. Mahane testified, the wall is held up with 2x4s and they are saturated and the bricks are gonna start falling, the facade's gonna start falling down. And that, if you look at the print, we're coming in off of Clayton Avenue onto that parking lot.
Right, I'm suggesting, put the sketch that not that I'm a meter engineer, we come in off the alley, leave off the alley. And if we just had to save the front of that building, it would be a lot less expensive to save.
Well, how could you come off the alley to go, if you came in off the alley and you have to angle park, then how you get out? You back out?
I'm in off the alley, you hang a left, I can park and I'm looking at all your angled spaces, then you hang a left, get back out. But you lose several spaces, you had 23, I'm down to 15. So I'm just wondering with 7,000 square feet.
Well, the facade would not stand on its own. We'd have to reconstruct it because the wood behind it is not structurally sound.
Yeah, it would take some repair work, I understand.
Right.
Which is, you know, us building owners in the city, I mean, you own some other buildings, and we're always battling with time, right? There's always.
Well, I mean, you know, I have 63, 21 to 25, you can see that I well maintain a property. And I spent a fortune on that building, redoing it. I didn't walk away from it. And I never walked away from any other property.
How long did that autism space stay vacant because of no parking before you were able to rent it?
5, 6, 7 years. I mean, when there was no parking, people walked.
So I just want to correct something I said. It was listed in April 30th, 2009, till October 30th, 2009, by David J. Willett of Realty Exchange, which I guess through the realtor in my left. So I just want to correct that record. Also, what was the condition in 2009 when you purchased this building? Was it relatively in the same condition?
Yes, it was. It's deteriorated more, but it was not rehabable then. It was on plastic soil, as I mentioned. Okay. And the only way to fix plastic soil is to tear it out and get a stable foundation. Yeah. Now, I can't put a stable foundation on a rock and roll building.
I'm familiar. And for the engineer, how long did it take for this building to get to how long would it typically take a building to get to the state that it's in right now? Would it have been like this in 2009 in your opinion, before that, after 2000?
I don't know how old the building is. Do we know how old it is?
It was Mariana's Pizza. They've been there
30 years.
30, no, it's been probably 50 years. But it was deteriorating when they got it. Yeah, I was across the street already, and it was deteriorating then. I mean, they had 3 or 4 roofers try to put a roof on it, and they failed.
I think on the city's website,
Could you try that again? Well, actually, can you go to the microphone? Oh, sure.
Addressing the age of the building, I believe on the city's website, I read a portion of it was 1947. But there's several buildings there. I don't know all of the ages, but I believe that's what you show on the website.
The last slide we saw before this one said you were going to resume a PowerPoint.
Yeah. So that's what I was looking at. I can wrap that up pretty quick.
Because the parking garage is going to close.
I did.
The parking garage is going to close. We'll have to recess.
Who's?
people able to move their cars.
The age of the building is 1898. For the tax record.
Really? So. Did everybody hear that? If you're in the parking garage, you're gonna close. Won't be able to get a car out of the garage. I don't think we have that problem.
Let's see how fast we can run.
I'll definitely try to wrap it up. So Pete, you wanna?
Go back to my seat.
Yeah. Let's see, Greg. Why? Otherwise. Oh yeah, do this, leave the first one. So we're back to the 6 questions on the why, and I'm just gonna, I've already talked about this, the building is not a merit structure, even though it was designated, at least in the denial letter, as being such. We also submit it's not qualifying because, which is what Mr. Krasnoff indicated it was in the denial of 2020. Qualifying for listing on the National Register for federal, state, local, or private incentive programs for rehabilitation or adaptive use. We're not on the register. We're not on any incentive program. This point, building is not capable of adaptive or rehab economic use. I think we've covered that. So I will, other than say, as notice of condemnation, we need to demolish this building for the health, life, safety, and welfare of persons or property in the area. Continue with the why. Any attempted reconstruction or rehabilitation would create an economic hardship upon the applicant. I think both the engineer and the contractor have testified as to that, so I'll move from that point. Demolition of the building would not have a negative impact on the block. So this is obviously the point, the biggest point of contention. That facade, when we look at it, we think that's what we don't want to lose. I understand, because Meg talks about the block face, but we would submit it's not salvageable. In terms of trying to leave that there and then make a parking lot behind it. We haven't priced that, sir, so but we would submit based upon Mr. Mahaney's testimony that it's not reasonable to conclude that that facade is salvageable for any purpose going forward. Is that correct or incorrect?
Correct.
So now, directly across the street, there's a parking lot, which Seamus McDaniels has. Then there is some off-street parking for Hibernia. So I realize it's going to look different, but we don't believe it would have a negative impact. And I want to, whether this has any persuasive effect on this board or not, I want to say this, that the Board of Adjustment grant in December of 2003, that board specifically found that the grant of the use of the parking lot would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the public, would not cause serious injury to neighboring property by hindrance use or impairing property values, would contribute to enhance and promote general welfare, is compatible with surrounding uses, does secure public safety and welfare of the community. That was done. Alderman Narayan wrote a letter in protest. The association wrote a letter in protest. There was a period of time, 30 days after the grant of that any aggrieved party could have appealed that decision. It was not appealed. It became a final decision. And I would submit the findings of that Board of Adjustment were final as well and should be considered taken into effect here. Oh, sorry. Meg in her staff report said the proposed reuse of the building is a vacant lot. That's not true. We're trying to put it to an economic use to preserve the viability of the office building going forward. Without parking, it's very, very difficult to be competitive. And we would submit finally that the parking lot qualifies under the ordinance. Parking lots will be given favorable consideration when directly adjoining abutting facilities that require additional off-street parking. That's exactly our case as we submit. Pete controls common control of the adjoining building to the west. That's been acknowledged by Meg in her report. We have neighborhood support for this. We've had businesses supporting anything to improve the off-street part or the on-street parking by providing off-street parking. I think, well, I'm sorry, I keep thinking I can push it with my finger. So I'm at the how the appeal can be granted. We have our use permits, our construction permits are in place. We're ready to commit. Huh? Oh, yes, sir.
Could you point to the part where the director said vacant lot
In the ordinance?
in her recommendations?
Oh.
I see parking lot. That's what it says.
Let me see if it was in the denial letter. Apologize if I'm mistaken. I don't believe I made it up. But looking for the denial letter as to maybe that's what it was. I'll go on and I'll come back to that. I won't ignore it.
I just didn't see it in front of me.
I understand. So we are willing to accept a condition and supported by placing a restrictive covenant on the property that any future development of the property after the parking lot will be subject to cultural resources review. We've offered that to them previously, and we were told that that's not something that cultural resources could agree to. I'm not sure why, but we weren't saying that it was because we understand that if there's no structure on a building, on a lot, there's nothing for CRO to review. So if there's a parking lot, there may be nothing for CRO to review, as was the case with Hibernia Apartments because it was a vacant lot. We are saying that we'll voluntarily put something on the legal file, the recorded deed, to make that happen so that no development can go forward. Brad, anybody help me find this? Meg, is that in your denial letter? If you can find that while I'm fumbling around here.
Sorry.
I am concluded. Maybe if it would be okay, ask permission to see if I can find it, and then if you want to go on to the next agenda item, or if you have any other questions with me or the others.
If anybody in the waiting room, there's questions for any of the witnesses or the attorney?
For that.
Any questions for the commission, for the experts, for the law? Meg?
Just one question.
Sure.
Under conditions, item C, it says the structure 63, 17 through 19 Clayton Avenue appears to be found under the definition. So appears is who made that the word of fear is that someone just like walking by the
I
property or
personally
having someone
conducted,
like a professional look at it?
you know, the ordinance says that the staff goes out and does a visual inspection of the exterior portions of the building, and that is what I did.
Okay, so your recommendation is based upon
My observation.
your observation and your testimony is your.
It is sound under the ordinance. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I think your testimony is your, you don't have engineer expertise
No,
in regards to.
I do have almost 30 years of buying, renovating, or just renovating historic buildings, but. Can I make a few clarifications while I'm up here?
Sure.
I want to be sure, I didn't say this in my opening, but I want to be sure that Mr. Dufour's submission is entered to the record as well. And there is true that Mr. Krasnoff had classified the building as merit, and I initially did as well. Upon further analysis of the standards and of the definitions in the ordinance, I revised my opinion because I believe that contributing, which again means contributing to a possible historic district and important to design of block face and neighborhood, was a more appropriate categorization. Let's see. I would like to note that structural condemnation by the city just means that a building is unfit for use or habitation. It does not mean that the building needs to come down. That is that's an emergency condemnation, and that does happen. And when that does happen, the building division declares something emergency, it bypasses our review because obviously it's a matter of life and safety. But unfortunately, there are probably hundreds or thousands of buildings that are structurally condemned in the city, but it doesn't mean that they need to come down. And then finally, there were lots of questions about the money that's been put into the building. According to the database that we were able to search, no permit applications have been sought since 2009, with the exception of demolition permit applications.
Question for you. So in terms of the determination, contributing versus merit, it's pretty typical for succession of cultural resources directors I have seen to not always agree with each other. Same building come up with different agenda with different attributions. That's not unusual or out of the ordinary.
Correct.
Okay, and contributing to possible historic district does not necessarily tie the significance of this building to the National Register of Historic Places.
Correct.
And the ordinance allows us to simply consider it insignificant building under the ordinance based on your determination or recommendation of contributing, regardless of it ever gets listed in any historic district.
Correct.
It's called the subject of historic tax credits.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have a question. Back to contributing in merit. So I'm looking at the definition of merit. Merit means contributing to an existing or potential city or national historic district or having a unique architecture style. Contributing means contributing to a possible historic district and important to design of block-based neighborhood. Aren't they basically the same? But a merit means contributing to an existing or potential, and contributing means contributing to a possible historic district.
Well, you'd have to take that up with whoever wrote these definitions, but.
Well, exactly. The contributing building becoming part of a district would become a merit.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
These are like phases of evolution. So
Perhaps.
if there was a local district here, this would be automatically merit.
Perhaps.
Are these small buildings or one building?
It is considered one building. When it's an old building with an addition on the front, but it is one building.
So I just want to go back to art, because what you're supposed to do is classify this building as high merit, merit, qualifying, or non-contributing. Right, that's what, so, and so I want to alleviate this confusion here. So to me, merit means contributing to an existing or potential city or national historic district.
Yes.
So it's actually using the word contributing. So I think I agree with Commissioner Allen, that a contributing is a merit.
Okay.
Agree? You agree with that?
I do.
Because your choices here are to classify as high merit, merit, qualifying, or non-contributing.
Okay. So
if I was giving you those four choices, which would you pick?
I think I would pick merit.
All right. And I think he said, Mr. Krasnoff said it was a qualifying.
Qualifying means qualifying for listing on the National Register or for federal, state, local, or private incentive programs for rehabilitation or adaptive reuse.
Kind of the same thing, isn't it?
The definitions, I think, could be a little clearer.
Okay.
But this is what we have.
And then Commissioner Hamilton was asking you, so, and I think you answered, but I just want to hear it again. So what I
This is correct, that you're supposed to make an exterior inspection to determine whether a structure is sound,
That's correct.
and that's what you did,
That's correct.
an exterior inspection.
Yes.
And if the structure or portion thereof proposed is obviously not sound, then you should approve it unless there's unusual circumstances. But in your opinion, this was not, obviously not sound.
That's correct.
Similar to what the engineer said, like, you get the exterior, if you're sound. Okay, and then if it's a sound structure with apparent potential for adaptive reuse or resale, it shall not be approved unless we go through these other criteria and said it should. And you go through those criteria, well, so do you believe this could be, adaptive reuse or resale?
I do.
Based on your 30 years of experience?
I do.
Seen similar structures that have been rehabbed and reused?
I have.
All over the city of St. Louis?
Mostly not in the city of St. Louis, mostly New Orleans, but a hot, humid climate as well, with a lot of wood frame structures.
But in the rest of your staff?
Oh, absolutely.
Forever, it's seen it.
Decades, yes.
Okay. So we have reuse, and so then you went through subsections A, D, F, and G, and determined that there wasn't, those did not support demolition.
That's correct.
Okay, then, I just want to make sure. So there's actually two ordinances that have applicable standards that we should be evaluating together. There's 64832, and there's 64689. Is that correct?
Correct.
And they're pretty much the same. And so you set forth the ones for 64832, but we have similar standards in 64869.
Yes.
Right.
For 64689.
646.
Yeah.
Sorry, 646.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you were to go through the same criteria of 64689, you would reach the same determination.
Yes.
Okay.
I have another question. Okay, so I'm stuck on this up here and exterior visual observance. So are you, is it your testimony that you are 100% confident that your exterior visual review is more accurate than the engineer that's been around since 1973 that did a more intense, detailed?
Meg, let me rephrase the question. Do you believe that the building is sound under the definition of the ordinance?
I do.
Chairman, I have another question.
Yes, please.
So are the owners team, so, I brought up a compromise solution. Would that even be considered by your group?
Well, I don't believe it, with 15 spots gone.
The 15 remain.
I think we'd have to study that.
We have to go back and look at it. But, and at the end, I would say that the side should not stay. It won't be stable. I mean, the wood's rotted and, it's gonna hurt somebody. It will fall down eventually. That's properly put out structure.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Meg, you want to come back up?
It does, yeah.
So an economic hardship, so the applicant has not submitted any information regarding economic hardships, just to be clear. So you haven't, other than what you saw tonight, you haven't seen a detailed cost of demolition, estimated cost of rehabilitation or use, right?
That's correct.
Okay, you haven't, there's anything about feasibility of public and private financing presented or submitted,
That's correct.
the effect of tax abatement, anything submitted,
Nothing.
and the potential for economic growth and development in the area.
Nothing.
And then with respect to urban design, you heard from the attorney here, it's summary, but can you just, in your own words, state again what the demolition of this would do to the integrity of the existing block base?
Yeah, well, there's 2 blocks on Clayton Avenue. As I said, it's downtown Dogtown, and they are remarkably intact with small scale 1- and 2-story buildings that all above the sidewalk. There's a real sense of urban cohesion there, of low scale density and walkability. And I believe as an urbanist and as a preservationist that the creation of a surface parking lot would adversely affect that cohesion, and that it would not be compatible, and it would be detrimental to the other uses and the other businesses and the other buildings that are on those blocks.
That's based on your 30 years being a preservation developer.
Yes, with a master's degree in urban planning and undergraduate degree in architecture.
And there's one criteria, which is to propose construction, architecturally compatible with existing lot, building setback, scale, articulation, rhythm, overall architectural character and general use, so not applicable surface parking lot could not be compatible with the existing lot. So they just don't satisfy that, right?
Correct. It's antithetical to the block face.
Okay, then back to the redevelopment plan. Demolitions which would comply with the redevelopment plan. There is a redevelopment plan, it doesn't comply with it, because it doesn't allow or state or talk about demolitions, which are normal redevelopment plan, but demolitions, there's demolition.
I think I follow your question. That's correct. The redevelopment plan that does exist for this small area does not call for or even discuss demolition of any buildings.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Yeah.
Before we do, I know for the record that Commissioner Robinson, who has been with us virtually, is now with us physically.
Good day out there on the road. I'm just curious, I'm reading this letter from the Clayton Dam Community Association, and I know the applicant, on her own, said that he had never met Brett Ryan until now. I think that's what he said. You can correct me if I misunderstood that. What effort was there to engage the Clayton Dam Community Association, present this plan for a parking lot and see what their stance might be?
When we applied for the conditional use permit, I sent letters to Mr. Narayan's staff, reached out, said, how do I contact him? I sent a letter to him and also to the association, through Alderman Narayan, inviting him to the association. I didn't have a contact. I had a name, Susan Darden, but I had no contact with her. So that's what I did, and no response at all.
When was this again?
When we applied for the conditional use permit, it was granted in December of 23 for the second time. So before that, probably May.
Yeah.
How long it took to do it.
Oh, and so you
Because
did,
we couldn't apply for it till we got the plans approved.
you did submit information, including the plan, the ultimate goal of this parking lot.
I don't believe, sir, I included the plan, but I included the statement of what was being requested. Yes, you can.
Further questions, questions? Anything else?
Let me just say this, I was quote unquote correct in the denial letter, where Meg said it was a merit building, said the proposed use is a vacant lot. It was in the denial letter, not in the statement. And I understand, sorry, I can't read that one. Killian, sir?
Killian, yes, sir.
Oh, Killian, I'm sorry, next.
Skip. Skip. Skip.
Trying to navigate this ordinance obviously is not that easy in my view. It's complicated, but it does say that the structure's architectural merit, uniqueness, and historic value shall be evaluated, and the structure classified as high merit, qualifying, or non-contributing. Those are the categories. And merit, of course, does use the word contributing, which is the classification that Meg in her staff report said that it was, even though that's not one of the ones in the architectural quality under the ordinance. Does use the word contributing to an existing merit, contributing to an existing or potential city or national historic district, or having unique architectural style. No uniqueness to the architectural style. Krasnov says that, but in any event, I realize the word contributing there, but we would submit this is not a merit building whatsoever. So that's it.
Okay. Well, nobody in the waiting room. Richardson, you got a motion?
The Preservation Board told the director's denial of the applications demolished the building, as it does not meet the criteria for demolition of ordinance 64689 and 64832. Specifically,
Well, you go for now.
Yes, please.
Specifically because, under criteria A, the only redevelopment plan that exists for it does not provide for or allow or discuss demolition. So there is no demolition permitted under redevelopment plan. I would also note that it's supposed to be based on the criteria rated in order of importance. So redevelopment plan is the most important. It does not support demolition. That would be for fixture quality. Like confusion here, there's potentially that from the CRO director that it's a merit building under the definition, as well as contributing building. Demolition of merit quality structures shall not be approved except in unusual circumstances, but shall be expressly noted. The applicant has not noted any condition of it. The office has made an exterior inspection, especially the testimony determining whether the structure is sound. The testimony was that it was not obviously not sound. Therefore, the office, and the engineer actually support that determination as well. Then the office sound structures with apparent potential for adaptive reuse or resale. And the code says shall not be approved demolition unless other criteria A, D, F, and G supported. Staff has determined, and the evidence was that those other criteria do not support it. D, neighborhood impacted reuse potential. Vacant mainline buildings on block face, present issues from the building. The staff report, the evidence was the majority of buildings on both sides of the block do not do show reuse potential, and that this would be detrimental to the block face. Staff report notes that there is reuse potential of the front portion of the building, definitely potential for reuse. There's been no evidence of economic partnership presented based on criteria and facts that were in the ordinance. The urban design, the testimony has been that the integrity of these two block face would be impacted significantly, the continuity and rhythm of the structure within the block face, and that demolition would adversely affect this. And proposed new construction, proposed subsequent construction is not supported because the proposed construction will not be architecturally compatible with existing block face. Building setbacks, scale, articulation, rhythm, overall architectural character, and general use of the exterior materials and colors. Generally, proposed is a service of the block. Therefore, those criteria, the applicant has not met its burden, and I review my motion.
Second. Discussion.
Yes. I do, because I guess I have my question is, we have an expert witness or someone testifying to the integrity of the building, an engineer, and from firsthand experience in the real estate industry for 20 years, I have seen this situation where you go into a property, it was completely fine. We literally just had this happen in Sunset Hills. An appraiser appraised this property for $400-something thousand. We listed it and we put it on the market. Several crafts people started getting engineers in, and they said it was a tear down. And so we had it was not salvageable. And that building tricked us so bad because people had been living in it, and we found out this building was unsafe because the person died. Had it staged, spent all this money to find out a lot. You know, sometimes there are tons of buildings you can save. I've dealt with many investors in the city of St. Louis and in the county, and many times you can save these buildings. But when an engineer expresses that they've gone in and done detailed observation of the property, and you're having other people say that, I just question, you know, do we just wait until the building is in shambles? Because I think a false conclusion a lot of times can be the building looks fine, and sometimes it's not. So that's what I want to know about.
Yeah, I just think that's, I understand you're saying that that's not the law. The law provides that staff is supposed to do an exterior inspection and determine if the definition of sound. It's a very narrow definition of what sound is. And the other, that's what their own engineer said, that you have to go inside, your question, you have to go inside the building to determine that it was unsafe and unsound. So
the only testimony we have is from exterior inspection, it doesn't appear sound for code. So I understand what you're saying, but that's not compliance, compliance of the fact. So your question should go to, you know, the viability of rehabbing it and economic hardship, and they didn't put on, evidence with respect to economic hardship. They didn't put on a full, evidence.
I guess with the $300,000 or $400,000 totaled, on there's the contractor spreadsheet saying this is pretty much a Band-Aid based upon the letter I read from the city said they need to address these several points or get rid of it. And so I guess my concern is then throwing who wants to put $300,000 or $400,000 into a building that you know is going to continue to have issues 5 years down the road.
One of the problem here is that it's that much money on the building since 2009. We haven't applied a single building permit, which tells me that either they've been making repairs legally or they just haven't made repairs.
So I agree with that point, but are we, and that is not okay to purchase something, you know, and neglect it or not do what they're supposed to do. And I can't say whether or not if this building was already in a state of no return. But at this point, do we punish someone for neglecting the building and make them spend $300,000 or $400,000 for something that you're putting it into a limit? To me, that doesn't make sense. And I feel again, an outside, anyone can go up to the building. And I pulled this building before I got to the meeting and looked at this building, and I'm like, this looks perfectly fine. This looks like, and even when they first started their presentation, these pictures, yeah, it needs a lot of work, but you know, any rehabber can go in there. But then when I heard the engineer start discussing his findings, that's when it completely shifted in my mind as to the viability of this building. And yes, it's frustrating that maybe he did neglect it and it could have been repaired in 2009, but I'm looking at where we are now, and if it can't be salvageable, why are we having to throw $400,000? Because he's going to have to. If we say he can't demolish it, it sounds like he has to throw that $300,000 or $400,000 based on the city letter. To me, I don't understand why we make someone do that, and we know that it's a limit.
Well, I think those are points well taken. I definitely second comments from Commissioner Richardson on what definition of soundness we're actually the basis of our decision. It says, you know, exterior visual inspection, the building can support current loads for 6 months or more. I think that's been met in my professional experience with staff. I think that a lot of the testimony from the engineer are maybe good reasons why the building can't be renovated, but you know, an adaptive reuse. But the proposed new use of the site as a parking lot is not allowed under the current redevelopment ordinance and is incompatible with the urban form of the district. So there's another possible option of coming back to the proposed new building where this discussion could go differently. But right now, we have someone who bought the building for a parking lot, has not taken out any permits demonstrating repair or good stewardship. And the choice is between a building that is sound under the ordinance and a surface parking lot in a very dense, attractive urban business district, and our ordinance allows us to deny that.
Further discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner, the motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. I'm going to call the roll. On the motion, Commissioner Allen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammaker has left the meeting. Commissioner Hamilton, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
No.
There are 3 yeses, 2 noes, the motion carries. Chair abstains. Okay, we've been 5 minutes. break.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Everybody else, thank you for your patience. We'll be right back. Sorry, mistake. Provided.
Yeah, five. Well,
Yes.
Weeks?
Thank you.
Yes.
You're gonna say it less. Oh. Bob? Is the staff asking for this to be continued, or is the staff asking?
No, let's get some of your presentations. I'll ask you to get it. See if it's a motion. So,
Yeah, you're well, I didn't, how do you, I think everyone was getting excited to both ways, and I wonder if it's totally perfect.
What was the last meeting now?
Oh, okay.
July.
What?
okay, the preservation board is back in order. Calling agenda item B.
Okay, Bob Bettis with staff, spread to tell the truth, need to enter in item 64689, as amended by 64925, that's the enabling ordinance. And then, Hyde Park's ordinance 57484, separate port presentation and the PowerPoint. The applicants are not present.
Anybody in the waiting room?
We do not,
Is there a
unfortunately.
motion?
I will, guys, wait, one more point. I do know the applicants had planned to speak with the neighborhood group in Hyde Park Saturday. And so I had spoken with the neighborhood group and they're waiting to make comments. So they're in process of, I'm not sure what happened tonight. I want to make that point.
We have any waiting clock moving?
We can always move things around if need be to defer if need be. The denial, but I can always have them reapply. I mean, I can always move things around and make it work if need be.
I think not showing up is a bad thing.
Okay, I'm not just arguing with you. That's
Motion?
Well, I would move that the preservation board overturn the director's denial to construct a two-car garage in rental side.
Overturn?
Overturn.
Is there a second?
Oh.
Surely.
There's a second, I can explain that.
Surely.
Second.
All right, I just think in the context across the alley, every building that's there historically is missing. We want to keep people in Hyde Park and in the north side. I have been always fairly lenient on enforcing the standards, in order to keep homes occupied, and it's the greater good of having this preservation tool in this neighborhood.
Further discussion?
I don't disagree with Commissioner, but I think given the fact that the individual is now here, I'd at least like to hear from them. So, if I had my preference on it, it would be to continue this to the next meeting, so we can hear from the neighborhood and the applicant.
Yeah.
I'll draw my motion.
Yeah, I second. Yes, I withdraw, and then I'm gonna second.
Well, then I move that we continue agenda item B to the next preservation board. Second.
What does that represent?
We can continue it on, I believe. I mean, if you continue it, I believe that's appropriate, right, Barb? I believe that's okay, as long as the board continues the item. It's still open. It's an open hearing, essentially.
Yeah, I don't have the file, but is there anything, I know with the demolitions, they have a certain number of days,
No,
but I
we're
don't.
okay. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay, commissioners,
Are you making a motion? Are you gonna vote on that or?
motion was made and I'm looking for my vote. Unless somebody wants to move the previous roll.
Previous roll.
Objection?
Wait.
Well, that was.
No, I don't want to refer to the previous bill.
Then I'll call a roll.
Yeah. Yes.
Commissioner Allen, you vote yes?
Yeah.
Use myself for my own motion.
Right.
Commissioner Hamilton, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Alderman Ryan, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
There are abstains on this vote, there are 5 yeses, no no's, and motion carries. The matter is closed. Calling agenda item C.
Okay, Bob Bettis with staff, still telling the truth. Again, need to enter in ordinance 64689 as amended by 64925, which is our enabling ordinance, the Compton Hill ordinance, which is 5702, separate report, and my presentation. This is a property located at 2926 Russell in the Compton Hill Local Historic District. So give you, and the issue here at hand will be the installation of a new vinyl fence. Here's context for you. The fence in question will be this wooden fence you see behind the black metal chain link. So it's the fence along the eastern edge and then a partial along the rear or south edge. Here's the location. It's at the corner of Russell and Hawthorne. Again, the fence will be running along partially on the back and then up the east side. And then there's aerial shots showing context. This is the proposed site plan showing the replacement. Again, the black metal fence in front is staying, just a replacement of the wood fence along the side. Again, some additional context on Hawthorne. The property in question is at the right. And this is some fall and winter context, getting you a sense of the property. Looking east, the property is located at the right. So the main view of the fence on the east side of the property is from Russell, pretty much sitting in front of the property. If you get too far to the west of the building, you do kind of lose sight of the building. So the main line of sight to the proposed area of fencing is what you see highlighted in red on the left-hand side. There's that angle. And then at the rear of the property, down the alley, it's hard to see, but a little washed out. But by that green dumpster, that is kind of the location of the other portion of the fence that the applicant wishes to replace. So the proposal is to place a wooden fence with a 6-foot vinyl and metal fence. The framework is metal and the vertical slats are vinyl. This is what was part of the packet as well as another one I found online. It's going to be in a, I believe you called a clay color panel or a vertical siding or vertical fencing, and the frame would be a dark color. This is where it is. Here's context. Basically, the ordinance prohibits the use of vinyl fencing. It allows for wood, metal, stone, wrought iron, evergreen hedge, but vinyl is not one of the materials that is on the approved list. So staff cannot approve that. As you can see by the proposal, it is kind of a shiny-ish material. So the main complaint with vinyl is that it has an artificial appearance. And as you can see by these photographs, it does kind of show that reflective quality. So staff believes that the board should uphold the director's denial as the proposed fencing is not compliant with the ordinance. Keith Buckholz is here from the neighborhood group, will speaking on behalf of the neighborhood's opinion on the request. Any questions for me?
So that there is community consultation.
Gentleman, right?
Anything from the all?
No.
Okay, so come get that one. First, I'd like to thank you very much for your patience. We have not had one that.
I know.
Wow.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm just fighting what's going to be a 7 o'clock graduation for the school that I work for, and that's what I'm working on.
Let's see if we can get you out of here.
Okay.
Tell us your name.
Yeah, Michael Brennan. I do intend to tell the truth and everything that I'm presenting here. I am the owner of the property, myself, my wife. We've lived there 48 years and worked it was our starter home that became our forever home. And we have worked to upgrade it every year that we've lived there, doing all kinds of things to the property since. Yes, yes, it is. Paid $38,000 for it when we bought it. So, and I'm proud of that. This is just one more upgrade that we would like to do. We just finished doing the aluminum fence, it looks like wrought iron, to a great expense to us, but we're trying to, the other things we're trying to do, whatever we do at this point, we'd like it to be the last time, okay? That's why I have looked at a number of opportunities and materials to build a fence with, and this seems to be the very best. I have built all the fences that are there, save for this most recent one. And the company that built the wrought iron fencing is also contracted to do this particular fence. What we're looking for is something that would be substantial and that would not have to be rebuilt. This would be, I've put up three wooden fences, and I'm just looking for something, again, that's more permanent. I also am looking at and wanting to do something that is very muted. The color is very muted. We are already in the process of doing plantings along the front and along the side that would make it much less visible, if not invisible, to the street once those grow and are put in place. Anecdotally, I do have, and I don't know if it makes any difference to the board or not, but I do have 2 signed statements from both my neighbor to the east and my neighbor to the south. I'm a corner, so those are the 2 neighbors that would be most affected by this. Both are very much in favor of wanting me to redo that fence and to do it in the materials that I'm requesting here. I don't like white vinyl. I think that does look very stark and inappropriate. I do see that would look less appropriate potentially to the neighborhood and perhaps disrupt the preservation of it. But this is meant to be a more muted but a more permanent type of fence that I'd like to put up. That's great. Questions?
What is this?
That's the bid. The one on the far left is the bid for what is going to be put up, what I would like to put up.
You want us to consider this?
Say it again?
You want us to consider this?
I mean, it's a part of the material that I'm working from. I want to present everything that I can to you.
Is to build the record that you want for your appeal. So everything that you want us to think about, just tell us you want it on the record.
Yes, I would like that on the record. Yes. Good.
Good questions? Any other here? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, no, okay.
Thanks.
I'm Keith Buckholz. I do swear that everything's going to be the truth.
Again,
there we go. I do historic standards for the Compton Heights neighborhood. And we actually stand with the CRO on denying this. This would be the first vinyl fence in Compton Heights in a neighborhood that upholds our historic standards quite tightly. And the more I think about it, the more I think about vinyl windows coming into the neighborhood. Well, where the location of the house sits, is where the points of Longfellow and Hawthorne come together. That, of course, our neighborhood carries on 2 more streets on the other side. When you come out of those 2 streets, the first thing you see is those 3 houses. This fence runs along the entire length of it behind the iron fence. It's the first thing you see. If it's a clay color or a cream color or anything, it's going to be immediately visible, day or night. If your car lights are on, they're going to hit it. You're going to see it plainly from Russell as well. And you're also going to see it coming the other way because it's a prominent corner there. It's prominent right on that wedge. Like I said, we don't have any other vinyl. We always try to stay within the guidelines of Compton Hill Historic District, which does not allow any kind of vinyl fences. And I really think this is going to open up the ability for people to come back at us and say, well, why can't I have vinyl? You know, there was a fence that was already put up a couple years ago, a small pool fence in the back of a house that, you know, I've tried to work with these folks. I came down to the house last week and tried to talk to them about, you know, different options and working with them. Normally in Compton Heights, you know, we're a tight little neighborhood. Whenever somebody wants to do some changes or whatever, they usually contact me first. And even in our newsletter, we always tell people, contact us first. And then, you know, we can work together to make something work for you. And then, you know, when it needs to go to get a permit, we're there for you, you know. That was never done with this project. In fact, the first I heard of it was when the denial came up. And it came back to me. So I tried to go and work with these folks and was, you know, told that there was another vinyl fence in the neighborhood. Well, what was in the neighborhood and was being used as an example was actually a teak fence. And I said, well, you know, that's a pretty high-end fence, but I'm sure there's something in the middle we can, you know, we can work with, just not vinyl. You know, we just don't want that in the neighborhood. We're a historic district, you know. I think it's wonderful that they've been there for 48 years. That's fantastic. When I moved into the neighborhood, that's my intent too. But I want to live in the same neighborhood, in the same type of neighborhood that they've been able to live in for 48 years, which is a historic district and a historic neighborhood that stays that way. So on behalf of myself and the Compton Heights Neighborhood Betterment Association, we really plead for a denial of this. And I am willing to work with you folks on anything that we can come up with that'll work. This is a hard situation to come up against a neighbor, especially a neighbor that's less than 2 blocks away. And we're there for you, not against you. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Good. Or is it not?
Is there something you want to add to the record?
Yes.
Okay, come forward.
Again, for all the time I've lived there, I did not know of these kinds of restrictions, and my ignorance, my fault. I take responsibility for that. I had just gotten a permit through the same office for the wrought iron fence a couple of months before that. I would also tell you that I called this gentleman a number of times, received no response, trying to find out what was going on. Finally called the president of the board, who got in touch with him, and he then finally came down and talked with me. I'm not trying to make a big deal out of this. I'm trying to improve my property and put up a fence that would be a forever one at this point. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to break codes or anything. I will tell you, I would guarantee you, if you look from the street to the fence I'd like to put up compared to the teak one that he just described, you would not be able to tell the difference. Or you would not say, that's not vinyl or that's not wood. In fact, I alerted them to that fence saying, well, this is a plastic fence also. And then they told me, no, that it's not, that it's teak and, you know, that it was acceptable. I don't think there was a permit issued for it, but that it was up. So again, just in terms of full disclosure and as much information as you can to make the decision. I just wanted to include that.
Yes.
So given the neighborhood's position on this, would you have an issue with replacing the interior panels with wood?
I have talked to my contractor. He said, maybe you could do that. He won't do that. That's not something that, this is, you know, this is a all parts fence, and all those parts fit together and are made for this particular fence. And I did ask him that if, you know, we could do something in wood, and he said he would not. And I don't know if another contractor would. I haven't taken it beyond this at this point.
Motion.
I move that the preservation board uphold the directives denied as the final still the historic district standard.
So materials may include, that's not a list of what it may include, you're saying, because it specifically says what materials not to use. So I guess I took that as these are the suggested type of materials to use, and it should be compatible with the look of the neighborhood. If he's saying that the same type of fence as the neighbors or the fence that he wants to put up is will look visually the same. I don't know if this is as the one the neighborhood is recommending. To me, that's compatible, but maybe I'm reading this wrong. It says materials may include, I read it as these are possible options, but do not use barbed wire, chicken wire for your fence, your chain link. So I might be reading it wrong. I'm asking that.
Well, yeah, I would take May to, you know, this is a list of materials that we considered, but I do agree that the list of prohibited materials does not include this material specifically, which would use maybe certain property owners. I mean, in any revision of this code, maybe that should be addressed, but a lot of these codes, as we all well know, did not anticipate every little thing that we were dealing with. Glasgow codes will take some time, and that effort is underway. So there is some ambiguity.
And the neighbors, he said that his two immediate neighbors are completely fine. Those are the people that are going to be looking at it from. So.
And I've signed affidavits from them if you need to see them.
Okay, yeah, so I guess on record, I take it as these are types of materials to use because to me, it was specifically vinyl is a common type of material. They were very specific about the materials that you were not supposed to use. I would assume they would put vinyl on there. So. And I don't know if vinyl goes with historic, but I Googled it and it said vinyl fences are good for historic homes. I just Googled it. What is it Google?
Yeah, I don't mean
is vinyl fencing compatible with historic homes? Another popular type of fence for historical homes is the vinyl fence. So that's I don't know.
We have an alternate here, but please don't ever consider an ordinance replacing this board with ChatGPT.
Right. I will just say that the attorney in me sees the may and sees those are materials that you could use. I think it's interesting that the following sentence says shall not, and you know shall is if the person said materials shall include wood, stone, brick, wrought iron, then I would say they absolutely must. But I think that there's a lot of leeway here.
The testimony that I found persuasive was though everybody else would go fence, it's spoken something other than one.
Yeah, so
That's what I'm going with.
And it's not all vinyl, it's metal frames with vinyl tongue and groove inserts.
right, so my thing is, my neighbor has put up an illegal vinyl fence in the Central West End. And I can tell it's vinyl from the street, from the alley, from every location, and it sits next to my house, but it's vinyl. And so to say, no, you'll know it's clean. And so my concern first, and the reason I made the motion was one, because you can tell it's vinyl, so it's not compatible. It does not look like anything else. It looks fine. And so even without it being an excluded material, it doesn't work historically. And so that's.
I think I just plugged it in. Change your mind.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No, I was processing what you said.
Any further discussion?
Can I say one thing? Maybe some context, may I say one thing or not? Is that okay?
I have to put it
Okay.
And unless it's like the building's on fire. There's no way you can get to your cause. Commissioners, I'm going to call a roll on this motion. Commissioner Allen, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Khalid? Gone. Alderman Ryan?
No.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
And Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this. There are 3 yeses, 2 noes, and the other.
Thank you.
Commissioners, the next thing on our agenda is the director's report, which we do not have to do.
Yeah.
I think we need to hear it.
1 minute. I promise you.
It's a short but important.
I am as eager to have this meeting wrap up as you all are. I just want to wish you all a happy Preservation Month. May is Preservation Month. We have not done anything official to recognize that, but I just want to let y'all know.
Things officially tonight to recognize.
There was a lot. I want to remind everybody that there is an NAPC webinar on Thursday. It's 1.5 hours of continuing education credit, but I'd recommend that we all participate in it anyway. It's about preservation and housing, which is a very hot topic, very relevant to our field, to what we do, to a lot of the matters that come before you as board members. Brief RFP update. We are awaiting the executed contracts, and once we have the executed contracts, we can fill you in on the selected firm and go into a lot more detail. And then lastly, as I believe I've shared with all of you, I will be departing St. Louis in this position probably sometime in July, moving out of the country, and a lot of, it's very bittersweet, and I'm not leaving right now, so this is not my farewell, but I just want to say that I really enjoyed.
I don't know if they're going to prevail.
Anyway, that concludes my director's report.
Can I just add to the director's report, a small report from this commissioner? I will also be departing the preservation board at the end of July. I'm not going to, and I wish I was going to, but I will be visiting assistant professor of history at West Virginia University starting August 1st, where I'll be teaching architectural history and historic preservation.
I don't know about the Stockholm, Washington.
Yeah, I told myself.
It's easily Googleable. So that's maybe.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I recognize Olivia Finley from my office. She'll be probably around that time transitioning, and she'll be here as attorney for the board, and me, I'll still be down the street at City Hall, but I'm speaking anytime. Yeah. I get it.
No, because I literally just faced that with listening, and then like, it was so, but it doesn't.
I'll make up for the time.